Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Stanley. I'm Assistant State Librarian and Assistant Vice Chancellor for Library Innovation and Collaboration at the Georgia Public Library Service. And we are very pleased to be joined today by members from the Palace Project team and Deborah Hakes, Director of Communications and Marketing at Georgia Public Library Service. From the Lyrasis side of the house, we have Jill Scarson, who is a Palace Partner Success Leader with Lyrasis and the Palace Project, as well as Tara Carpenter, whom many of you have interacted with as you've gotten implemented in the Palace Project. And you can go ahead and advance the slides, Jill, if we're sharing those. There we go. Okay, great. We've got a couple of agenda items today. We're going to talk through some key talking points for Palace Project implementation here in Georgia, some documents that should feel fairly familiar at this point. We'll also walk through some common patron questions that you may have been receiving already. Then we're going to get into some fun stuff with examples from other states that have implemented Palace and some marketing resources and great ideas that they have implemented that have worked well. We'll have some time to talk about how you can share your feedback and development priorities with the Lyrasis team to make the Palace app work better for Georgia libraries. And then finally, we'll have some space for creative idea sharing, some things that have worked well in your communities, and time for Q&A if you have any questions. Throughout the presentation, please feel free to pop your questions into the chat. Tara will be keeping a close eye on that, and will either interject with questions or ask you to hold them until a suitable point in the presentation. But please feel free to pop those in throughout and don't be shy. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Ms. Deborah Hakes to talk to us about the resources available for you here in Georgia.
Thank you, Angela, and good afternoon, everyone. If you go to the next slide, please, Jill. Thank you. So in coming up with key messages, we really wanted to think like a patron, right? So we wanted to think about who it is we're trying to reach and what do they want or need to know about Palace Project. What can they do with it? Why would they want to think about it as something that is good to use, worthy of using, that is beneficial to use, beneficial to them versus a burden? What are the selling points? So those are kind of the ways we thought about the framing as we came up with why this was such a great product and why your patrons would want to use it. Could you change the slide, please? So here are a few of the talking points that we came up with thinking from a patron perspective. And all of these are going to be on the marketing toolkit that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But you know, Palace brings your library's ebooks and audiobooks together into a single, easy to use app. That's big for patrons. A single place where they can utilize these. Exclusive content from Amazon and Audible that they can't get anywhere else. That's a great selling point. I've heard from just friends that I have in my neighborhood that don't know that I'm affiliated with libraries, that they're trying to get books and there's always like 200 people in line ahead of them for these ebooks. And so they have high demand titles that don't have these long wait times, kids books in other languages, and then access to public domain books that you can get available through Palace Project. So those are just some of the talking points that we have included in the marketing toolkit. But there may be other things that work locally in your community, books, subjects that are popular there or that may make sense for you to talk about to your audiences. If you could advance the slide, we will get to the kind of the meat of what I am here to talk about, and that is the marketing toolkit. This marketing toolkit is about Palace Project, and it also is about ebooks and audiobooks generally. So we have specific graphics and things like that for Palace Project, but then we also have other messages about why ebooks and audiobooks at the library are great, or how you can access them there, save money, and so on. So we encourage you to look at that toolkit, and you'll have access to these resources. We want it to work for you locally, so we have graphics and social media messages and a video. Now the graphics in the video you can customize in Canva. So to do that, I think we have instructions on the toolkit, but also you just save it to your computer and then upload into Canva using your own account. And then there's also a Canva template for that graphic you see in the bottom corner there, Read More Anywhere. And that template, you can open it up in your own Canva account. You can add your logo, your URL, whatever else you want to add to it or how you want to modify it so that it works for you locally. We also have like a 15-second shareable video on there about Palace Project that also can be easily customized because this is about your library and what you offer, not about Georgia Public Library Service. The toolkit also has a downloadable RAT card, and it has these and other resources that are available directly from our toolkit, linking to Palace Project resources. So you kind of have a one-stop shop for these to get the how-to guides, the getting started guides, the logo files, and other things. We also have a press release template that GPLS wrote, and we updated it last week to reflect feedback we had gotten from all of you at the libraries. So we hope that that's a more usable resource for you. And bookmarks, you have received those via directly from Lyrasis. Angela wanted me to let you all know that we don't have extras, but if there's enough demand, they may consider printing more. So if you have a need, just let us know. Regarding this toolkit, as I've mentioned, we designed this with libraries in mind and making it customizable and meeting your local needs. So continue to let us know what is working, what isn't working, what else you might like to see. This is not a one and done toolkit. It's not, carved in stone. We, as you've seen with the press release template and some of our graphics, we're more than happy to edit them, to revise them, and to add to it to make sure that it is useful for you. We recognize that you have many things to promote at your library, and so we want this to be easy for you and to meet your needs. So that is the link to the toolkit and to the Palace Project resources. We hope they are useful, and I'm on the call for the rest of the hour if you have questions. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deborah. The marketing and communications team has really just been a pleasure to work with, and we're really grateful to them for taking the time to customize these resources to integrate your feedback. So I just want to underscore what Deborah said, that if you have any tools, ideas, resources that would be useful to you that we can include in there, please do let us know. We'll be glad to do what we can. So just a quick recap on the benefits that Palace provides. Of course, it's a content aggregator. It brings together, your Overdrive, your Baker and Taylor, your cloud library content. Coming soon, we're hoping early October, we'll have the ProQuest ebook content able to be integrated into that app. We haven't gotten a development timeline from them yet, but EBSCO has committed to creating that pathway for us as well for their ebook content that currently lives in Galileo. That's, many thousands of ebooks that are both pleasure reading and academic in nature. I would say they definitely skew toward pleasure reading, though, and are underutilized currently in the Galileo context. In addition to that, you have access to the 25,000 plus public domain titles. So if you, if your library is contacted by a teacher who is looking for 1 million copies of Jane Eyre, you can absolutely point them toward the Palace bookshelf. Your library does not have to be a Palace Project subscriber or user in order for a patron to download the Palace app and access the Palace bookshelf. So if you're on here out of curiosity, but your library has not implemented the Palace Project yet, do know that those 25,000 public domain titles in the Palace bookshelf are accessible to anyone, regardless to whether their library participates in Palace or not. And then, of course, you have access to the content to be able to purchase content from the Palace Marketplace, the Indie Author Project, and those simultaneous use perpetual access BiblioBoard titles that have been very popular. Next slide, please. You may have had a chance, or you and your teams may have a chance to have done some searching and poking around in Pallas. The Pallas app defaults to surfacing those titles that are readily available for checkout. So that, when somebody logs into the app, they can right away find something to read. Oops, sorry, I always get a Teams call at exactly the wrong moment. Let's see, here we go. You can also, let's see, actually the Novelist integration is something that we have to talk about a little bit more on our end, but we do have Novelist available through Galileo still. So if you are looking for some reader's advisory tips, we strongly suggest utilizing that resource, of course, in tandem with guidance around accessing ebooks through Pallas and other platforms. Next slide, please. The Pallas team, in partnership with the Digital Public Library of America, works really closely with major publishers to provide favorable licensing terms to libraries. And this was really a key part of the decision to move ahead with Pallas. We wanted to position Georgia's public libraries to be able to be responsive and build stronger digital collections. We have heard over the years that ebook and digital audiobook collections development looks and feels very different from traditional print collection development. And by that, we often mean that either your collection disappears or you are needing to plug gaps so quickly that you're only purchasing the bestsellers, the most popular titles, which in turn reinforces those disappearing collections, because those are most frequently the titles that have licenses attached to them that are metered access that will, self-destruct over 2 years. Pallas and with the help of DPLA is working hard with indie publishers and major publishers to provide better licensing terms for libraries, to give you more options so that you don't have to put a big chunk of your budget into something that you're not sure is going to circ well, or so that you can surface some more of those really high quality, but maybe underexposed authors to your patrons and build a collection that is longer lasting, more stable, and more closely reflects traditional collections development that we've kind of all come up understanding. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we want to make sure that this app is easy for your patrons to use. So if you have any feedback on ways that Pallas and Lyrasis can improve the app experience, please share those. We will give you some direct links to be able to do that at the end of this slide presentation. But just know that the app is designed with accessibility in mind. It is great for first-time app users. It's easy to navigate. And we have already heard from a few of you with some great suggestions on ways that interface can be improved. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jill to talk us through some common questions that Pallas has heard over the course of its many implementations and integrations.
Of course. Thanks, Angela. We know that with any new implementation of technology, there are always going to be patron questions. And one of the reasons that we do these presentations about marketing and talking points is to better equip you to answer these. So we've talked about the unique aspects of Pallas and why library patrons should start using it. But these are some of the other common questions that we do get asked. How do I get started using Pallas? How do I log in? Can I use both Libby and Pallas? Is a big one. And, in that case, we obviously, as long as your library has integrated your Overdrive collection, yes, they can. And when we look at these vendor partners that we integrate with, we do really think of them as a partner as opposed to a competitor. We are an aggregator app, which means that we are trying to make it easier on you as a library as well as your patrons. So more content in one place. Our API allows some talking between the two apps, which means that patrons can place a hold in Libby and access it in Pallas, or they can borrow a book in Pallas, an Overdrive book in Pallas, and they'll see it on their Libby bookshelf. So the loans and holds will translate. The only thing that does not translate between the two would be the reading placement because of the way that is stored on a device. We do have push notifications that patrons can enable that allow them to be able to see when their holds become available or their checkouts are due. I think it's they have 2 days on the holds to borrow them, and then for checkouts, they should receive notifications, I believe, 3 days before the book is due, as well as I think another day before the book is due. Unfortunately, right now we are not an audio video streaming platform, but that is work that we have considered down the line. And unfortunately, we are unable to link to Kindle devices. We do have a partnership with Amazon Publishing and Audible. Fortunately, right now that does not extend to being available in the Kindle App Store. We're hopeful that someday that might change. But again, I think, you know, it just takes a little bit of time to get to that point. So beyond that, a little bit more about how the app functions with your library. Palace integrates with your library's ILS for patron authentication, which means that most patrons will only ever provide us with their library barcode and password or PIN number. So we really don't ask for a lot of PII. Anything that we do ask for is safe. We're not selling data. All of the patron circulation data is anonymized, so that's not going anywhere either. And we have created these ongoing resources that are updated to reflect that 5 easy steps to get started. So patrons download the app, they find their library, they browse for titles, they select what they'd like to read. And because we're focusing on those available titles, anything that they'll see in the catalog is something that's available to borrow today. But with 2 clicks, they're reading the books in hand. But more often than not, the questions that we get asked is how libraries talk about Palace. And as we've started to see other states kind of grow their projects, I thought that it might be interesting to kind of take a look at how libraries are talking about Palace and what they choose to kind of highlight. So on the left, you'll see an example from Huntington Beach Public Library, which is based in California, talking about some of the collection content that they've purchased that highlights, you know, their community needs. It's a beach community. 2 years ago, they did a collection about maritime life, as well as combing the beach, combing the sea, all the things that benefited that community. Some libraries have chosen to focus on the unique aspects of the app, while others have chosen to tie into their summer reading or their summer projects, focusing on, you know, why not read on an ebook app reader during the summer on the beach, things of that sort. Here are some examples of some of the things coming out of Georgia. South Georgia Regional Library has created a banner on their website talking about the unique aspects of Palace. Middle Georgia has done a fantastic job of promoting to their community. They've had a couple resources available in the news, but I was really excited to see that they have some training opportunities available this coming month, and have been doing them at individual branches. So this is just a social media post explaining when they're doing training sessions on the app platform and where patrons can find it. Another thing to consider is with all of this information that you have, you may want to do multilingual resources. We do have some resources available on our library resource page in alternate language other than English, but this is an example of the city of Corona in California that chose to translate their getting started processes into Spanish to support their Spanish speaking communities. And beyond that, we always like to talk about what some of our partners in other states have done with Palace to increase discovery and manage their collections and highlight their community initiatives. California State Library is a large partner of ours and have been for the last several years. They have a statewide shared collection similar to eRead Georgia called eBooks for All California. Right now, that collection has over 100,000 titles and growing. And as part of this, they've chosen to do something similar to what you've done with eRead Georgia. Libraries can apply for matching grants. So instead of money automatically being allocated to individual libraries. The libraries do have to apply. And at this point, we are into our third round of matching grants for participating libraries. And the idea there is that you have this shared ownership of the collection. It allows libraries to take control as well as provide feedback. They do have a kind of an e-resources group that meets I would say probably quarterly to discuss collection development for the project as a whole. But beyond that, the individual libraries that take advantage of this are really allowed to kind of tailor a project to meet the needs of their communities. As a result of this, we do have an annual summit that's online. That's an opportunity for libraries to discuss their experiences as well as exchange ideas. It's a great opportunity for us as lyricists to kind of hear from libraries and see what they're doing. Beyond that, they do have some statewide reading initiatives. One was that we did a lane for El Dia de los Niños, the California State Library Summer Reading Program, and then these library lanes are shared in every library instance in the state. Now, I know I talked a little bit about Huntington Beach. They are one of our grant recipients. So they're actually, I believe, a 3-time grant recipient. So I do need to update this into their third year. On 2023, I showed you a graphic focusing on their beach life and maritime themes. This last grant period, they did a project on more nice, not a lot of spice. So focusing on cozy mysteries and queen romance, as well as holiday ideas and things that, really meet the needs of their aging population. A lot of people that they work with are new to apps and reading devices and maybe have a little bit of a different need in terms of the content. This year's grant project is Out of Sight but Never Out of Mind and focuses on cultural heritage ebooks and cultural heritage collections. And as a result of their involvement in this project, their collections have seen a significant amount of circulation. They've really put in the time and effort to create these custom graphics for their social media. And beyond that, they've been really great partners and have spoken about their experience. So if you ever want to talk to a library about how their experience has been with PALAS and how they've gotten their community involved, I'm happy to put you in contact with some of our partner libraries in other states. Beyond that, Vancouver Public Library recently launched with PALAS. They're doing things a little bit differently, and they've chosen to focus primarily on audiobooks. So they have a collection of growing Audible titles that they purchased from us, as well as a Blackstone Unlimited subscription that has been made available to anyone. They've curated custom lanes with fiction and nonfiction staff picks and have chosen to talk about all of the exclusive content available on their social media platform. So if you look to the right, you can see a reel that they did and made available, I think, in both Instagram and Facebook. Beyond that, another partner of ours is Connecticut State Library. One of our earliest partners. I believe we have about 160 libraries in the state that have adopted PALAS as part of their EGO Connecticut program. As such, we have these reading initiatives that they've promoted over the last several years, including Alt CT Reads, which is a group of selections for, I believe, juvenile YA as well as adult selections. As well as the Governor's Summer Reading Challenge. They choose to focus on state literature and award nominees. They've done custom collection development about Connecticut history. They have an IMLS grant that they've supplemented their Exploring America collection, which talks about different communities and DEIA nonfiction. Through the EGO program, they have done some virtual collection development support for that project, as well as they've created a Connecticut State Library using our virtual library card system. So for patrons that live in communities that haven't partnered with us yet, they still have access to those statewide resources. So that's really geared towards libraries that haven't integrated yet, state employees, or for libraries that are either unautomated or aren't able to integrate with PALAS at this time. So all of those lists and lanes that have been made custom by the state have also been made shareable. So if any library in the state would like to add that to their collection as well, to highlight those titles, they can do so in our backend collection manager. Lastly, Vermont is the Vermont Department of Libraries is one of our other partners. They've chosen two different pathways. One, they have a Vermont State Library, which is geared towards state employees. This is another virtual library card for these patrons, focused on Vermontiana materials, as well as fiction and nonfiction and professional development. We're piloting something new though, which is kind of neat. It's called their Book Vermont collection, which is also a virtual library card, meaning anyone that downloads the app and lives in Vermont can sign up, or has a Vermont address can sign up, or is in Vermont at the time. This is intended to target travelers as well as seasonal residents, so people who have like a secondary home but don't necessarily frequent the library. This includes the statewide shared collection, again, the curations for Vermontiana and award winners. And we've been able to kind of collaborate to develop these decals that Vermont libraries are placing in the wild. So for libraries that are in ski communities, they've chosen to maybe partner with the ski resorts to put decals available in the resort itself. This is also a place where we're promoting the collection to patrons that are in non-participating areas. Again, really the idea is to make sure that everyone in the state has access to those shared resources. And I think Angela wanted to talk about other creative ideas in the Q&A.
Yes. So thank you so much, Jill. Some of the great ideas that Jill highlighted from other libraries are across the country are ideas that we would love to for you to rip off and duplicate. We've also considered a number of those here in Georgia. I do want to share that you know, I've mentioned this in various meetings and platforms before, but one of the great things about our structure for PALAS is that it allows GPLS to distribute funds much more quickly to libraries in support of your collections development work. So whereas without an infrastructure like PALAS, we need to individually contract with libraries to be able to distribute those funds to you. With something like PALAS, where we can kind of designate allocations and have you spend directly in that marketplace portal, it makes it much easier for us to be able to, you know, say, hey, we're very fortunate to have a pot of money. We'd love for you to build a collection or add materials to the statewide shared collection. We also, you know, always have a wish list. So if there are titles or license types that you would love to see us concentrate on, we currently have some draft carts in the works for Georgiana and Georgia history collections, for the Georgia Center for the Book Lists, the Peach Awards winners. So we do have a number of kind of carts that are built and ready to go as soon as funds become available. I did mention at the directors meeting recently that we'll be creating some ad hoc collections development committees to help oversee that work. So do keep an eye out. We'll be asking for interested degreed library staff to give their feedback on those lists as we develop them, understanding that, you know, some of your collections development team may really love doing a deep dive into the award winners, but may not be as conversant in Georgia history titles or vice versa. So lots of options for participation there to help guide the development of this shared collection. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, I'm going to put it into the chat, is that I did recently email out a little staff cheat sheet that will kind of gives you different columns for what kind of content is available in which place. I'm going to pop that into the chat right now. It's a really big, ugly Canva link, but you should be able to, at that link, take that template and customize it according to your library's particular implementation of PALIS. So with all of that, we've given you a big overview of the Georgia-specific resources available to you, the ways that other states are promoting PALIS, and all the great many things that we think PALIS can do for you. We would love to hear from you directly if you have some things that have worked, some things that have not worked in your communities. That you think other libraries might like to hear or benefit from. So feel free to pop those into the chat or just take yourself off mute and comment live. Or if you have questions about anything that we've discussed so far, please feel free to pipe in with those as well. I can share a recent anecdote real quick. We heard at GPLS from a patron who had been living in Florida, had recently moved to Georgia, and was, I guess, accustomed to being able to get some of the very most popular titles through her library system's ebook vendor of choice within something like 6 to 8 weeks. And she was, struggling to be able to get her holds filled here in Georgia within, months and months at a time. So she reached out and shared her concerns, and we were able to, and she gave us screenshots. She was very thorough. She gave us screenshots of exactly which titles she was looking for and the hold wait times. And, we were able to respond to her and say, actually, 2 of the 3 titles that you have expressed interest in are available right now in PALIS. And I'm going to go ahead and see if we can mute this person real quick. But we were able to point them to the appropriate titles in PALIS.
Bye-bye.
And get them the content that they were looking for. As well as point out that although the 3rd title that they were interested in did have a holds line, it was about a third of the time as the holds queue in the app that she was using. So we were, just excited to be able to point that out and kind of make that easy handoff from one platform to the next without having to sacrifice anything, right? We want to make sure that patrons know that nobody, they're not losing access to anything, they're just gaining more options. No worries. Alan says, thanks for the ability to customize for co-branding. Absolutely. That is another really big takeaway for me personally about the PALIS project, is that we want for your library to be the face of your ebook resources, your audiobook resources. PALIS is not interested in taking center stage for all of the credit. They want your library to be the face of this easy experience and to be the reason that they keep coming back for more and more and more. So it was really important to us that whatever solution we looked at, and we did look at quite a few different options, would be able to represent your library as opposed to, kind of doing on behalf branding. So yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Alan. And while we're talking about the smart people who were behind all of this careful thought work and decision making, I do want to give big credit where it's due, in particular to the Regents Public Library Advisory Committee. We have an e-resources subcommittee that is composed of representatives from a variety of different states and RPLAC types. Those representatives are Beth McIntyre from Piedmont, Jillian Weaver from Chattahoochee Valley, Jeff Fisher from Forsyth County Library, Megan Herbal from Catoosa County Library, and Chelsea Kovalevsky from Cherokee Regional. So they have put a lot of time and energy into evaluating, assessing, implementing, and providing feedback on our implementation here in Georgia. And I'm very grateful for their assistance and, kind of constant iterative feedback. I'm going to pause for just another couple seconds to see if there are any ideas, comments, things that have come up as you've been promoting this on social media, ways that you've seen patrons get more or less engagement with the resource. There's a question in the chat. If a patron uses both Libby and Pallas, does placing a hold in both places increase their chances of getting an item sooner? Yes, it does. They can place a hold in, if there is a copy of that title in Pallas, a Pallas Marketplace copy and a Libby copy, they can place a hold on those copies independently. Jill can probably give more of the behind the scenes technical description there.
Just a little bit of, I'm not the technical genius on this call, that's Tara, but what I will say is it would be two separate items from two separate resources. Even if you had a third vendor that you'd purchase that title from that they have access to, like a Baker and Taylor or a cloud library, they could put a hold on those as well. But any of their holds that they place in Libby will show up on their Pallas shelf. So if they're looking to place the hold on the same item in both platforms, they won't need to do that. But if they do have, there are multiple copies from multiple different vendors, they could theoretically place a hold on one, 2, 3, 4 different vendor sources, depending upon how many your library has access to.
Great question. Thank you.
Angela, if you'd like, we do have a few extra slides that I can kind of transition to.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thanks, Jill.
Perfect. I know that Deborah talked a little bit about your toolkit that you're using through GPLS and some of the resources that have been branded for eRead Georgia. But this is just to say that we as a platform also provide resources on our library resources webpage. This is continually being updated with new digital assets and logos. We have training and videos available on our YouTube page that are available in both English and Spanish. We do have a repository of tons of trainings and recorded webinars on our learning management software, Aviary. We have printable materials and collateral. I did mention our Getting Started guides. That 5-step guide is available in English, Spanish, and I believe at least half a dozen other languages, made through both the use of AI as well as some translation experts that we've worked with in the past. There are plenty of external links, instructional materials, but I think one of the most exciting new additions is our feedback board. As we are a community-based app, so we are community-driven, and a lot of this means looking to our library partners for feedback as well as suggestions for new features. Now, we are a very small team of about 15 people, about a third of which are our engineers. So it does take us a little bit longer to develop new features, but a great way to get those ideas onto our roadmap is to use our library feedback board, which is hosted through FeedBear. This is linked on the library resources website. We can also share that link with you. But it gives you an opportunity to really provide that feedback and advocate for the needs of your community. And you can also go in and upvote. Tara and I will be reporting out, I would say that the top 1 to 2 trending ideas or most upvoted ideas to our engineers, I would say about quarterly at our development priorities meeting. We do have one coming up, I believe, this week. But we will continue to advocate on your behalf to get those ideas onto our roadmap. Again, small team, but we are really, really focused on ensuring that the app continues to grow and develop in a way that is both meaningful for libraries as well as for end users.
I would love to just underscore the importance of that feedback tool. It is the way that we can sort of crowdsource next development priorities for Pallas. You have the ability to upvote different priorities. So you do have to create an account to log your feedback, but it is quick and painless, I promise. And just a really important way to give that feedback in a meaningful way where the Pallas project team can look at those top priorities that really rise to the surface and figure out how and if they can be integrated into sort of actionable development priorities. If you have any questions about the Pallas project app implementation, if you are on this call and your library has not gotten started with Pallas yet and you are Pallas curious, please reach out to me. I am at your disposal and happy to talk through options with you. I'm at astanley@georgialibraries.org. Questions and feedback about the marketing toolkit can be directed to Deborah at dhakes@georgialibraries.org. And then if you have questions generally about Pallas or about your specific implementation, if you need help with troubleshooting, or if you're having any issues, you've got Jill available to you, as well as the Pallas support email, which is support@thepallasproject.org. And I'm also now putting into the chat a documentation guide. I refer to that heavily. I put all of the slide decks and recordings into that document. There's a table of contents at the top that will allow you to quickly and easily navigate it. So please use that. We do plan to create a parking spot for that document and its information on the GPLS website soon. So those updates are coming, but for right now, all things Pallas live in the documentation guide. So if you've lost track of the Pallas Marketplace link, or you need that FeedBear link again, those are all in the document there. You can advance the slide, Jill. This slide deck will also be put into that documentation guide, and it itself includes lots of great links linking back to the GPLS eBooks toolkit, our public facing page for eRead Georgia, as well as the resources we mentioned that the Pallas project itself has developed, the bookmarks, the QR codes, the things that you received through the courier, among other resources, and then direct links to the website, the newsletter, and the YouTube channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to check out the Pallas YouTube channel, I do highly recommend that. While the trainings that we do collaboratively are a bit more of a deep dive, Pallas has really taken a great angle on those YouTube videos. Most of them are under 10 minutes. I would say the majority clock in at kind of like 5-6 minutes. So if you went to a webinar 3 months ago and you have slept since then and you just need that quick refresher, the YouTube channel is a great place to look for the click here, click here, click here high level recap.
Yeah, and I can say we were very fortunate to work with a instructional design firm on these. So some of them are even shorter or have been segmented into shorter clips. So if you're looking for a little bit of a clip on how to create a list in a lane, which are those digital carousels, you don't have to watch the whole CM video. You can watch a 2-minute video on how to create a list and how to enable that as a lane.
Thanks, Jill. That's perfect. All right, so we can go to our last slide, which is just our thank you and any other questions slide. So I'll pause here and see if we get any questions in the chat or if anybody wants to come off mute. this is your space to share tips and tricks and, things that have worked. So please feel free. Or if a question has surfaced from your team and you're not quite sure how to answer it, please let me know. One of the last things I just thought about was that we didn't really dig in on this, but you do also have access to, through the, we purchased this through BiblioBoard, a statewide multilingual shared children's ebook collection. So you do have access to 3,104 titles through that collection, easily surfaced through the PALAS app. All of those titles are perpetual and simultaneous use, so they don't expire, and you can check them out to as many people as you like at once. We have over 30 languages represented as part of that collection, so I'm very excited that we were able to curate that and make that available to every PALAS participating library in the state. And we do hope to be able to add more titles to that soon. That collection is all fairly recent publications, so you won't find older titles in there, but you will find a great list of current available children's book titles in there that complement what we have in eRead Kids. And speaking of eRead Kids, that is still a great resource to recommend to parents who are looking for an app that they can download on a child's tablet or internet connected device. So that Boundless app will continue to be restricted for content for ages grades pre-K to 4th grade. Whereas the PALAS project is all content available in one place. eRead Kids is just kids content. So just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that we will continue to support that resource and make sure that parents and caregivers have easy access to that space. All right. Not seeing any further questions. Oh. All right, I got one here that says, did you say earlier that the titles you were borrowing were supposed to show up in your bookshelf in both Libby and PALAS? I'm not seeing that.
Only if they are Overdrive titles. If not, definitely shoot us an email at support@thepalasproject.org and send me a screenshot and we can investigate that further.
The content stream is coming out from the providers and into the PALAS app, but that's not a two-way street. So if you've reserved something that's a PALAS Marketplace title, you will not see that reflected in your Overdrive hold shelf. Good questions.
I'll also add, if it's a Kindle format item, that also won't show up in PALAS because we're not available on Kindles, so that you will only continue to see in Overdrive, as well as anything that is an Overdrive read format only. That's a proprietary format. So if it doesn't also have an EPUB, PDF, or MP3 version, that's the only other exception.
All right. We are approaching the 3 o'clock hour. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for attending. You know where to find us if you have any questions, and I will share out the link to this recording and the slide deck as soon as those are available, probably in the next couple of hours. So thank you, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday afternoon. Take care, everyone.